Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the Jerusalem Post, Eli Azur, Ronit Hassin, Yaakov Katz for putting together such a fantastic conference today. I think they all deserve another round of applause here today. And special thanks to all the government ministers and all the executives who came all the way, especially from Israel, to see you guys today. So I think deserve another round of applause. So we heard this morning a couple of times about the Israeli economy as a strategic asset. And I think this is the right opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and to talk about what's really happening in the Israeli economy and why it's so critical to help the economy grow in various aspects of the economy, both as a local player, as a regional player in the Middle East, and in the global economy. We have a stellar panel with us. On my left side, we have Inoon El-Roi, who represent the Israeli economy and industry here this afternoon. On my left, we have Nissim Tzioni, who is the founder and the head of one of the most exciting non-for-profits in Israel dealing with poverty and inequality, named Pitchon Lev. If you never heard about it, you should definitely look into it, and he will tell us all about it. On my right side, I have Bini Zomer, who is the country manager for Noble Energy, the American energy company, which is working very, very hard to bring natural gas to Israel and to the region. And he will tell us all about the energy sector in Israel. Next to Bini Zomer, we have Professor Itzik Ben Israel, who is really one of the visionaries behind the cyber industry in Israel and the cyber headquarters, the Prime Minister's office. And then, all the way to the right, we have Yaki Yanai, who is the CEO of Bluestem, and he's going to talk about the biotech industry and why his company and his industry, because he is an industry leader, is so important for the future economy. So maybe I'll start with you, Yaki, because you're a CEO of a biotech company. Now, we hear all the time here in the news about the cost of healthcare, about Obamacare and potentially Trumpcare, and you have solutions, smart solutions for all these challenges, both on the cost side and the medicine side. What your company is actually doing and why this is the solution?
Thank you, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So Bluestem, like another more than 1,000 companies, is a biotech company based in Israel. In my day job is to be the CEO of Bluestem, but I'm also co-chairing the largest organization in Israel, which is called the Israeli Advanced Technology Industry. Over 700 companies in the high-tech and life science, and the Israeli biotechnology industry is booming. Actually booming, we tripled the number of companies in the last decade, and I do expect that this will continue. I think to answer your question, I will ask maybe the audience, if there is anyone that is 45 or younger, to raise his hand. Okay. That's very nice to see. If I was asked this question 150 years ago, you'd probably have been alone here in the audience. So I think that what we're able to see here, that the world is aging dramatically. We doubled our life expectancy in the last 100 years, 150 years. And we need new technologies. Bluestem is one of the companies that provide cell therapy technology. So we will be able to face the huge challenge, but the huge opportunity of aging all over the world. And we are seeing all the main regulators in the world now understand that we need to come with new solution. And for companies like Bluestem, we're getting a lot of support from Europe, Japan, and recently also from the US government by having the 21st Century Cures Act, which give a major advantage in time to market for biotechnology companies and regenerative medicine companies like Bluestem. And Israel have a lot to offer. Israel has a lot to offer in the biotechnology field. So we see a lot of activity, and I think it's going to be very nice.
Thank you, Yaki, for this wonderful introduction. Professor Ben Israel, like biotech, we all heard about the cyber miracle of the Israeli economy. You just reminded me the number, more than 10% of the market comes from Israel. You were one of the visionaries behind it. Very briefly, how did you manage to create or help to create this ecosystem where the government, the private sector, and the Israeli academia, which you're a part of through Tel Aviv University, how you build it all together so quickly?
It all started somewhat after 2010, after the exposure of the attack on the Iranian uranium enrichment centrifuges. And then the Prime Minister called me and said, we have to expect a rise in the threat. What should the government do in order to be prepared to future threats? And I told him nothing. We cannot do anything because we do not know, anyone doesn't know, what are the threats that will be 5 years from now or 6 years from now, because cybersecurity is really the dark side of computer technology. And computer technology, every generation is, every 1 year we have one generation, something like this. So talking about 5 years from now is talking about 5 generations ahead. No one can really prepare himself to threats which cannot be predicted. And therefore, we should change the question and say, what ecosystem should we build in Israel that will function in such a way that then when the new unpredictable threats will come, we will be able to treat them, they will be able to do them. And ecosystem is mainly talent and people, and this we have in Israel. So we asked ourselves what modification we should do in all our ways of life, in education. For example, in Israel, it's the only place in the world in which you can choose cybersecurity as a subject for matriculation examinations. Things like this, and it works.
Clearly, you and your colleagues helped the cybersecurity world in Israel to be ahead of the curve. When I think about another industry which kind of followed similar path is the energy industry, because Bini Zomer comes from a company called Noble Energy, which actually, unfortunately, very few people know, but Noble Energy started drilling and looking in Israel years ago. Bini, the last couple of years, you and your colleagues in the energy industry were dealing with various regulatory challenges. You solved most of these issues, and now you're moving forward. Give us a quick update on where the energy industry is and what's your plan for the next 1 to 3 years.
Thank you. I came in this morning and I happened to walk in towards the end of Minister Steinitz's speech where he mentioned the Leviathan natural gas discovery. I think for a long time, I've been in Israel since 2010, and for a long time we lacked a champion, someone who would really take ownership of the industry and create a stable investment climate in Israel. And Minister Steinitz has stepped into that role and really set the path forward to allow us to develop Leviathan. We've taken a final investment decision. It's a $3.75 billion investment that we and our Israeli partners are making. It's the largest privately funded infrastructure in the history of the state of Israel. It's our second major project and third reservoir that we've developed there, third connection point. And in light, or thanks to the work of Minister Steinitz and this government, we're going to have 3 sources of energy in Israel. The government gets, the state gets 60% of the revenues that flow in from this, improved economy, cheaper energy, and it makes Israel more competitive. It is going to be one of the few places, I think, we were for the past 7 years saying this was one of the countries where it was very difficult to invest. Because of what's happened now, Israel is one of the few countries, if not the only country in the world, that's going to have a major offshore natural gas development, and we're going to be flowing gas from Leviathan by the end of 2019.
Terrific. So try to stick around until 2019. Nissim. So Bini reminded us the importance of having someone on the government side who is fully committed to the development of the private sector, at least in his case, the energy sector. In your case, you woke up one day, if you can describe it that way, and based on one little conversation, you realize that the Israeli economic and social story, it's not only about energy and technology and cyber, as we heard from Itzik, but it's really also about the poor, about inequality, and about other parts of the society. Tell us a little bit about what was your vision when you started your organization, and why it's such a big story right now in Israel?
Okay, this is a very important question, especially regarding Israel. The OECD forecast for 2017 says that the economic growth in Israel will continue. But the other report of the OECD says that Israel has the highest poverty rates in the West. This is a dissonance. This is not balanced, and this is one of the biggest problems of Israel. Unfortunately, I am an expert for poverty. And from my place, I can say that if we want to create balance, we have to change the way that we are thinking about investing in poverty. And I will explain what I mean. When I founded Pitchon Lev organization in 1998, there were 100,000 people beneath the poverty line. Now, after 19 years of hard work of all of us, we have now 1,800,000 people beneath the poverty line. So we have a big problem in Israel. And Pitchon Lev organization, the vision is breaking the cycle of poverty. We're doing it by helping more than 250,000 Israelis with food and the basic needs. And we also operate an educational program, especially for children at youth. We're taking them for 7 years, escort them 3 years in high school, 3 years in the army, and 1 year into the civil life. That's the way that we can create balance in the Israeli society.
Thank you very much, and I think the fact that we are hosting here you today with the Jerusalem Post is a statement by itself that with all our important work on energy and cyber and biotech, we will never forget the non-for-profit sector in Israel, which is obviously growing, and we are here fully committed. Inon, you work for the Israeli government. You are the voice of the Ministry of Economy and Industry. We heard a few times from our friends here how important it is to work with the government. Since there are so many corporate executives in the House, could you please remind us the role of the government in this process, especially when it comes to trade and investment?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I have the luck of being the last in this first cycle because I think my colleagues demonstrated quite heavily how it's important. Looking at a company from the biotech, this is kind of a B2B. The Israeli market is very small. They cannot survive only in Israel, and therefore they can get support from the government both for open doors and both for funding in order to get into foreign markets. Speaking on cybersecurity and energy and space and some other topics in Israel like mobility, the government combines many times needs. We had a need in a cyber security, we had a need in the space, and then we try to do several things. First, to fulfill the need. Second, to decrease the risk of the entrepreneurs and of the private sector to go into this sector. And third, try to build an ecosystem or make an environment favorable for ecosystem to have those companies and entrepreneurs working in. This is one thing. Second, don't forget we have one of the most sophisticated and, according to me at least, advanced vehicles for encouragement of R&D. We had the Office of the Chief Scientist that since the beginning of the year branded itself again, and now it's not only branding, it's changing of the DNA of this organization. And this is an organism which will support kind of $350 million annually for the companies. The second act that the government does, and this got to do with the inequality in the Israeli market, don't forget that we have 150,000, maybe more, maybe less, I would say, top engineers, people that have special skills. This is not all the population. And therefore, the government invests a lot of funding, both to get populations which their participation rate is lower, in order to have more people coming into the labor force. Last thing, if I may add, is that due to the fact that I was talking about these 150,000 people, that they are the brain and they work in R&D centers and they create their companies, etc., etc. Don't forget, none of us here and in the distinguished audience, that it's very important also to Israel to have, diverse jobs. We need to have manufacturing in Israel, and we have services in order to have as many people there and not in poverty.
Since you mentioned the diversity of the workforce in Israel and the need for the engineers, here I want to throw the ball back to your field, Bini. When you think about energy, because it's relatively a new industry, we don't have enough engineers. And clearly, you and Nobel Energy are working hard to find the talent, but also to create the talent. And here I would like to connect it to Bitchon Lev as well, because I understand that not only that you build the next generation engineers in Israel in the energy sector, but you also build partnership with other non-for-profits like Nissim. So can you talk a little bit about your role in the society at large?
Sure. I think, we don't lack engineers in Israel. We have a lot of engineers in Israel. We don't have engineers that have a background in oil and gas exploration and production. So unlike cyber, where Israel really, or biotech, where Israel really is an innovator on the world stage, what's happened in the oil and gas industry, Israel had a long history of failures in the oil and gas industry, had drilled 500 wells over 60 years, and had a lot of failures. It wasn't until Noble came in. Noble's an Oklahoma founded company based in Houston, where we had our first offshore discovery in 1999 and first production in 2004. And a lot of that was expertise from the States or from overseas. What we are trying to do now and what we're committed to is building a domestic oil and gas industry in Israel. And because of that, we have invested in education programs, really from a young age to expose young students in schools to what the oil and gas industry has to offer, up to training facilities where we have a partnership for building engineers and a lot of the blue-collar work which we and other industries are lacking in Israel. In addition to that, we think it's very important. We have a purpose, Noble. It's energizing the world, bettering people's lives. And so we don't forget also that there are some people who won't be brought into this and that we need to form those partnerships. And by chance, Nissim and I are here on the panel, but before Pesach, we did have a partnership with them and are proud of what we do as part of the community. We have 180 Israeli employees today. That is going to grow. And so we're proud of that partnership. But really the best thing that we do in Israel and the best thing that we can do for the economy and for the growth and to bring people out of poverty is to continue to develop our core business. And that's what we're committed to doing for the next several decades.
Thank you very much, Bini. And I'm sure Nissim, that you would love to see more companies building these kind of partnerships. Yaki, I think it's not a secret that Trump's new policies when it comes to healthcare, they're a little bit different. And with respect to regulatory approvals and with respect to opening markets, things are happening literally on a daily basis. What does it mean for the future biotech industry, maybe your company specifically? And maybe this is a good time to mention that you recently announced partnership with the US government, which obviously raises all types of interesting opportunities for you. Can you mention that briefly?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the Israeli biotechnology is moving very quickly. I think we all heard in the morning the different ministers talking about, for example, the radioactive threat from Iran, from all over the world. All of us are very concerned recently about radiation. And you know what? I have the solution in my pocket. That's a solution for now. In the last 3 years, we developed this product, placenta-derived product, together with the US government, with a different administration, including the Trump administration now. And now we are in a final stage, hopefully, that the solution for threat in radiation will come from Israel. We are based in Haifa, near the Carmel Mountain. And I do expect to see this product with the support of the US government, which is funding, and all of you as US citizens, you are lucky that your government is actually looking for that. And we were able to demonstrate that if we're going to inject these cells after exposure to radiation, we see that we're able to keep the entire population alive versus that. And this is exactly when we are seeing.
Terrific. Thank you, Yaki, and congratulations on this accomplishment. One thing you guys will need for sure is good cyber protection to make sure that your IP is well protected. Professor Ben Israel, when people here in the audience, when they think about cyber, sometimes they think about government. So the best example is the North Korean hacking story with Sony. But sometimes they think about criminals and other hacking in the private sector, the business community. How do you bridge this gap between the government side of cyber world and private?
At the end of the day, it's all about talent, about people. And people in Israel, as we all know, we have a compulsory service. And we sort the people before we send them to certain units. And some of them are sent to, some of them with the right skills are sent to cyber units in the defense. And then they go out after 3 years and to the market, sometimes to university, sometimes to commercial market. And we built a system that combines everything around this talent. Therefore, this is, by the way, the most, we are called many times startup nation, cyber nation, etc. The real secret behind this is the talent, the people that move from one community to the other.
So this is very important. So you're saying that the revolving door reality where people split their life between government and private sector is very influential in building a vibrant cyber community. Inon, when you think about the next generation of trade and foreign investment, we heard this morning from various ministers here about the pivot towards Asia, China, India. How the Israeli economy will continue and develop the North American market in this changing reality?
I think that every change of policy brings a lot of opportunities. So if there's going to be bigger and higher support and productivity and competitivity will be higher here, probably some of the companies will shift additional efforts in order to work in the US. And you know, this is in the private market. Generally, companies and CEOs like we have here, they will do what is right to them. What we need to do is to continue and seek for the advantages we have in Israel. And again, we didn't have gas a couple of years ago, so it was non-issue. Today we have gas, so it's also an issue to create an industry. Same for the space. When we were less mature in regarding to the space and to the cyber, we didn't invest so much, but when you have critical mass, then it's worth to continue investments in order to create industry in Israel in these sectors.
Thank you. Nissim, we heard so many times today how well the government is doing on finance and others. So could you please remind us why at the end of the day the government itself with all these accomplishments cannot solve the poverty and the helping the poor? Very briefly, please.
Okay, even that we know that Israel faced a security threat, I still believe, and we in Pitchon Lev believe, that this is the responsibility of the government to solve the problem of the poverty. And that's why we wrote the Pitchon Lev law that says that the government must take responsibility to take care of the poverty. But I want to tell you one thing. Pitchon Lev is making good job in Israel and creating change with partners from business company. But I want to share with you a small story, okay? Sure. How it started. One day when I was a host in the Israeli radio and a musician, a woman came to me with 2 little children, and she said to me, "Save my life." I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Me and my 2 children, we haven't eaten anything for 2 days." That's the way that the vision of found Pitchon Lev happened.
Thank you. We're very close towards the end of the panel. What I would like to do in the last minute we have is each one of these great participants mention one thing which is between you and accomplishing your vision for the next 5 years, and what do you think needs to happen to achieve it, whether the audience here in the room or people who listen to us from all over the world? Very briefly, one line.
Israel is on the way to become the biotech nation. We are switching from the startup nation to the biotech nation. We're going to increase the number of people that we employ in the advanced industries from 8%, hopefully to 15%. And I hope that you're going to be unemployed very soon, Nissim. So,
thank you. Thank you. Terrific. Professor Ben Israel.
Speaking about cybersecurity, cyber technology, today, something like 20% of the global investment in cyber technology R&D is done in Israel. I would like to multiply it by
multiple. Excellent. Bini, between you and the vision for energy independence and natural gas to all your neighbors.
Well, we're going to develop Leviathan. We're going to make Israel energy independent, and we're going to make Israel an exporter, not just to countries in the region, but beyond the region. I think there's nothing standing in the way of that. What it will require continued commitment from the government to keep focus on getting these things done and opening up these markets. And I'm confident that this government and any future government will be committed to that, because it is important not just for the industry, but for the economy and for the state of Israel.
Thank you very much, Bini. Last two, Nissim, what's between you and the vision?
Okay, we all know that
20 seconds.
Okay, we all know that Israel is a powerful military nation, but the real danger to Israel is not the nuclear in Iran. The real danger to Israel is the problem, the social problem that we have to face. And one last sentence, I hope that the government will learn from business company and from the people in Israel and will take real responsibility to solve the problem of poverty in Israel.
Thank you so much. Last word, very briefly.
I think it would be nice if we will increase the export in 30% till 2020 and decrease the cost of living. And I want to propose to you friendship, each one of you. Please come to work with Israel, invest in Israel, sell to Israel, buy from Israel for all of us prosperity.
Thank you very much. I want to encourage you all to become part of this wonderful economic story, whether you want to join the government, help Nissim in this wonderful organization, join the energy story, help the cybersecurity grow in multiple, and then finally being part of the biotech, truly miracle that we heard about today. Thank you, Yaki, Professor Ben Israel, Bini, Nissim, and Yinon. Thank you all for coming, and all the best.
Thank you, Effie.
Thank you.